What is up, my Squirrelites? It is I, your king, here with another E3 Impressions video, this time for, honestly, the last press conference that anyone ever gives a crap about on any given E3. Always the last to go is Nintendo with their usual Nintendo Direct format. I'm just going to jump right on into this thing because, I mean, really I don't have much else to say other than that. So, right off the bat, they immediately jumped into a trailer for a game called Daemon X Machina. That would be my assumption of how you'd pronounce it, because Ex Machina just makes sense instead of being like Times Machina or something. I don't know. Anyway, they showed this trailer. It's like a mech-based game. Like there wasn't really anything else you could glean from that. Shades of Gundam for sure. I mean, there was no gameplay in it. It was just, it's a game that's cool, and we had metal music in the background, and there's mechs, and that's coming out in 2019. Also, the audio like weirdly just stopped short at the very end of the trailer, which kind of threw me for a loop, but that's coming out in 2019. I mean, again, I have no thoughts on that because I really can't even tell exactly what the gameplay is going to be yet from what we saw. It's just kind of, oh, it's a mech game, as if there aren't a bunch of mech games already. Anyway, after that they had Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna the Golden Country. Now, I'm personally very confused about this one. I don't know a darn thing about Xenoblade Chronicles personally. Like, I've never been able to get into the series, never bothered touching it, but I don't really understand this. Like, it supposedly seems to me to be a standalone story expansion to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Which, alright, if it's an expansion, why is it priced at $60, especially if it's standalone? Like, wouldn't that just make it shouldn't it just be a sequel? Shouldn't it just be like another part? Why are we calling it an expansion? That just seems weird to me. That seems very weird. Pricing what you would call a story expansion, quote unquote, at the same price as the full original game. That, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. But it's Xenoblade Chronicles. It's Xenoblade Combat. It's Xenoblade. I mean, it's a Nintendo JRPG. Nintendo JRPGs very much have, I feel, a very similar feel to them, and Xenoblade Chronicles is the hit JRPG for Nintendo for the last, almost a decade at this point. I don't actually remember how long ago Xenoblade Chronicles came out, but I believe it's been a while. But for the last while, Xenoblade has been the hit thing, and Xenoblade is Xenoblade. If you either like it or you don't. Then Reggie showed up and decided to talk to us about Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which has already been announced, but they decided to actually go into it a little bit more, discuss the game. There were shades and elements of core Pokemon games that I saw in there. I'm still not entirely sure on what the game is, what point the game is supposed to serve. Is it supposed to be just like a light experience that's more tailored to people who know Pokemon Go better than the core series? That's like the best thing I can get out of it. They also announced that there is going to be this peripheral that's specifically for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee called a Pokeball Plus, which is basically a Joy-Con shaped like a Pokeball. And you can use that to kind of as an extension of the game itself. Basically to transfer your Pokemon between your phone, the Pokemon Go app, and then Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. And also, by getting the Pokeball Plus, the game automatically gives you a Mew to have, I believe is what I got from it. But the Pokeball Plus is $50 standalone, $40 if you buy the bundle that comes with the game, which rounds out to $100. I mean, Nintendo continuing with the theme of ridiculously expensive peripherals. I feel like that's a very hard sell because it's like, you know, $100 for a game like that seems very difficult for a sale, especially for parents that are looking to buy a game like this for their kids. But then, especially if they decide not to go for it immediately, and then they eventually want the Pokeball Plus later, well, it's actually $10 more, so it's almost the price of a full game just for that little peripheral. That's just that's too expensive. That's too expensive. I'm not gonna let that one slide. I mean, I've had problems with the pricing of Nintendo peripherals in general, but this one almost seems absurd even for the cost of a Joy-Con, because I know a pair of Joy-Cons is $80, and this is a Joy-Con with arguably less functionality. Like it's got one button instead of multiple buttons, and it's priced more than a singular Joy-Con. I don't know. I'm on that. Although I will say that I am a little bit more sold on Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, at least from seeing more footage of the gameplay, because it looks like a fun idea. It does. I still am concerned about whether or not the game can actually justify its price, but that's another topic for when we actually get the game in our hands. Then comes Super Mario Party. So this, I think, personally, was, as far as singular games go, was the highlight of the show for me. And I'll tell you why. It's because it looks like Mario Party again. And not only that, they're utilizing the Nintendo Switch's awesome features to enhance the game. Like, they were able to put, like, 2 Nintendo Switch tablets together and, like, create, like, a terrain. Like, they could, like, move around the screens into different spots, and then, like, that would change the way the terrain of the battlefield was on the top, like, top down, because they were, like, shooting each other with tanks and stuff like that. Based on how they connected the screens together, that changed the terrain, and then they could play that way, which I thought was very interesting, very interesting. But it looks like a proper Mario Party game with a few more additional elements, rather than that actually don't hamper the game. They look like they improve the game, such as different types of dice blocks and different types of items and things like that. The mini games actually look compelling this time around. It looks like they might actually finally get back on track with the Mario Party series, which hasn't been good in a while. I believe the last one that was good was 7 or 8. I can't remember. And I think they've released 2 core games, and maybe it was 3. I actually can't remember. They've released quite a few since the last good one. So, and even then, I feel like a lot of the Wii ones are debatable because a lot of people aren't big fans of the motion controls. But that aside, Super Mario Party looks good. I'm excited to see it. That comes out October 5th, 2018. And then after that was Fire Emblem, Three Houses. That's, I believe, what the game's called. It's Fire Emblem. I am the last person on earth anyone should ever talk to about that series, because I've absolutely zero vested interest in it, and I've never had any desire to get into the series. The only Fire Emblem I've played was Radiant Dawn back in the day, and while I sort of enjoyed it, it wasn't enough for me to ever want to play another one of those games again. And I mean, it's Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem's Fire Emblem at this point, especially now that they're starting to release them so frequently. I feel like the series is blending together even more. So, but I mean, if you love Fire Emblem, you love Fire Emblem. Same thing as I said with Xenoblade Chronicles. You either love it or you don't. And that's coming out in spring 2019. There were quite a few gameplay elements you could probably glean from that, as well as improvements. I saw some people say some things about how certain aspects of the battle system and the strategic system looked like they were improved from other games. And I mean, again, I can't speak to it myself personally, but go and check out the trailer if you're interested. Obviously, it did have quite a bit of information in there, a lot more than I'm actually telling you. Then after that was Fortnite for the Switch. We kind of all knew this was coming. It has been confirmed, but the crazy thing is it's out right now. It's out. But the big stink that's been made about it is actually not in regards to Nintendo themselves, ironically. I'm just going to touch on this for a minute. But was the fact that people who already have existing Fortnite accounts and they are attached to PlayStation can't use that same account on the Switch that have downloaded it. And that's been causing a big stink, because it really does come down to Sony being stubborn on cross-platform play again. And honestly, I'm really hoping this bites them in the butt, because they honestly deserve it at this point. But that said, be warned, if you have an account for the PlayStation 4 for Fortnite, you cannot use that account for Nintendo Switch. At least not right now. I think Sony would be very boneheaded with the current backlash to not get around to fixing this crap. But anyway, just a warning. So then Reggie appeared on screen again, and he started to go over a bunch of stuff, in fact. So he began by talking about a few indie games that they were bringing to Nintendo Switch. 2 of which have never been talked about before. The first one was Overcooked 2. The first Overcooked is a very good local co-op, or local multiplayer, excuse me, cooking-based game. It's very cute, very adorable game. I thought the first Overcooked was really fun for the couple hours I played it. And they've got a second one that looks like it has a couple improvements on the first one, but all in all, I mean, the first one was so good. Having the second one is, I mean, I think it's a great idea. However, this is not a Nintendo exclusive. I know a lot of people got confused about that. The Overcooked 2 is coming to all platforms, just like the first Overcooked did. But it is coming to Switch, which is really awesome. I think it's going to have it's definitely going to fit on the Switch very well. Having the whole 4 Joy-Con compatibility on one screen, perfect idea. Especially since they pushed that, the multiplayer aspect of the Switch so often. And only needing one Joy-Con to control each little character is, obviously good idea. That comes out August 7th. Then they had another game called Killer Queen Black. I mean, I didn't really have much to say about that. It was kind of just an action platformer that's in 2D. It's got sprite work. Another one of those indie games if you're interested. And then after that was Hollow Knight, which is out today, much like Fortnite is, on the Switch. Hollow Knight, I have not personally played myself, but I have heard nothing but amazing things about it. Nothing but praise. A lot of people say it is it is making a case for one of the best games of this year. Or was it this year, or maybe was it last year? I actually don't remember when Hollow Knight came out, now that I think about it. All I know is that Hollow Knight is a very good game. I need to play it myself personally. I just have never gotten around to getting it. But I know that a lot of people love it. So if you're into 2D platforming games, that's probably the one you're going to want to check out, especially on the Switch. And then he talked about Octopath Traveler for a minute, kind of reminded us that, hey, that's a thing that's coming. It's coming out July 13th. And they also mentioned that a demo for it will be releasing on the eShop on June 14th. And then came the sizzle reel, and this included all sorts of games, and I'm going to just name off some of them. This wasn't even all of them. But a lot of interesting games, such as Captain Toad, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. There was this game called Ninjala that looks really interesting. There was Dragon Ball Fighter Z, a bunch of Ubisoft games on there, Ark Survival Evolved, Wasteland 2, Poor Man's Overwatch, Dark Souls Remastered, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, Wolfenstein 2, The World Ends With You, Mega Man 11, and Mario Tennis Aces. I mean, it was just all sorts of games that they're like, hey, remember, these are all coming to the Switch in the future, so get excited for those, and that's cool. I mean, the Switch is already, like I've said before, the Switch has a promising upcoming library, and that was great. In fact, that was the moment, I think that was the moment that excited me the most of anything in the Direct, like just in general, just because I was reminded of the fact that, oh yeah, all these games are coming to a portable system. And that, to me, is what makes me just so excited about playing games on the Switch. When I actually get around to getting one, is just, portable games. I mean, these are portable now. I can't wait to play these in a portable fashion. I can't wait to play Dark Souls Remastered portable. I can't wait to play Captain Toad portable. I can't wait to play Crash portable, or I probably won't play Monster Hunter Generations, but all the games that were listed on there, playing those in a portable fashion, playing those on the Switch, I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited to eventually get my hands on all that. Well, after the sizzle reel came what basically made up most of the conference, the thing that most people were expecting out of this conference, and that was Super Smash Brothers. Now, just to give you the details of what's coming with this Super Smash Brothers, it is called Super Smash Brothers Universe. It is releasing it was December 7th. I actually forgot to write down the date. I believe it's December 7th of this year. It had the roster has been completely revealed, and it consists, or at least I believe it's been completely revealed, it consists of everybody. Yes, that's right, everybody from the 64 game, from Melee, from Brawl, and from Super Smash Bros. On the Wii U. Everyone's there. They've brought back Ice Climbers. They've brought back both Squirtle and Ivysaur for the Pokemon Trainer. They've brought back Wolf. They've brought back, pretty much, they've brought back everybody. Everyone's there. Rob's there as well. I mean, Dr. Mario. All the characters that were ever cut from one of the Super Smash Bros. Games are back. And they have a couple additions. They have Daisy, kind of. Daisy is kind of a... is sort of just they're what they're calling an Echo Fighter, which is kind of a clone of Peach, basically, but you can use by selecting Peach. I would say, it's very much along the same lines of what we considered Ganondorf to be when he was announced versus Captain Falcon. Like, she isn't just a reskin of Peach. She is going to feel and play a little bit different, but her moveset's going to seem about the same. And then they also announced Inkling, which they kind of already announced in the Smash Brothers reveal, the reveal at the last Direct. That was kind of a given when they showed the Inklings at the beginning of that trailer. And then the very big bombshell at the end was, for the memes, Ridley. is going to be a playable character. So that is the roster for Super Smash Bros. Universe. Huge roster, biggest yet. They're also bringing back stages. They're adding some new stages. They're also changing up mechanics. There's actually more than one Echo Fighter. There's going to be quite a few different skin changes and aesthetic changes, and they're different from just color changes on characters. They're different from just palette swaps. They're actually going to be bigger aesthetic differences. They're I believe like one of them was like they had Link in I believe also the Breath of the Wild outfit. I think it was Breath of the Wild outfit. They also had Ocarina of Time Ganondorf, which not Wind Waker Ganondorf. That's the best one anyway. But yeah, they had reskins for all sorts of different characters. That was really cool, as well as new Final Smashes and things like that. Some of these skins would also change up the different mechanics that each fighter would have, depending on which one you picked, just because they wanted to kind of stay true to those series. Basically, it's a big old celebration of Super Smash Brothers. What I would like to cynically call it, because I am a cynical asshole, is Super Smash Brothers Wii U, the Definitive Edition, which is basically what it is. It is the exact same game that we got on the Wii U, but with all the DLC from that game, all the other characters packed in, all of the stages packed in, a couple extras, and that's it. There's, I mean, a couple mechanical changes too, but that's really it. That's what this game is. It is essentially the definitive edition of Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U, which I would also argue is exactly how they implemented Mario Kart 8 when they brought it over to the Switch. I think it's a very similar kind of feeling. Now, that's obviously what the cynic in me wants to say. The other part of me wants to say I'm super stoked for this because I do love Super Smash Brothers. I really do. So I'm, if I can get my hands on a Switch before this game comes out, this is going to probably be a day one buy for me because, Super Smash Brothers as a series is the epitome of consistency. Many people could very strongly argue the case that it is the most consistent and flashiest and highest quality game series ever, of any game series ever made, just because every single time a game comes out, it's fantastic. From the first one all the way up to the most recent one. And yeah, it is a hallmark of quality, and probably the only game I could really safely tell you, hey, don't feel remotely bad about pre-ordering this, even though that's still also a completely unnecessary thing to do anyway. But I still have to, be fair to everyone else and kind of give Nintendo crap for the fact that they spent most of this direct talking about what is essentially a Game of the Year edition, a good port job, but a port job nonetheless. Because this isn't a new game. It really isn't. It's just kind of all the old stuff. They didn't add too much that's new. They just sort of polished things up and threw in a bunch of more, some add-on content to an already existing game, which is fine. That's not to say this game is bad, but it's, to me, that's not really a super strong showing, personally. It's not something that gets me insanely hyped. It's just like, in fact, if anything, it almost makes me wonder, why didn't they do this sooner in retrospect? Why did they take certain characters out? Like, I know they explained some, but, plenty of other fighting game series do this. Like, almost all of them do. You look at the Ultimate Street Fighter games. You look at, the Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom games. You look at the, Tekken Tag Tournament 2. All these games provided extra content, extra modes, extra skins, and the entire roster of every game prior. So, saying, in those games, most people don't consider them groundbreaking and legendary. And sure, they're not, as high quality series as Super Smash Brothers is, but I still gotta, levy that criticism on Smash Brothers. I can't give it the ultimate free pass just because it's called Smash Brothers. And I'm not saying that I was expecting something new. I'm just saying that I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, this was the best reveal of E3 or something along those lines, when it really is just a glorified port job. It's not even like a super polished, high quality 4K remaster. It looks just as good as the Wii U edition does. Just saying. But yeah, I'm very excited for that. But that was pretty much the entirety of the Nintendo conference. And you notice I talked a lot more about this because I went into depth on things in the Nintendo Direct and talking about the Nintendo Direct. But at the end of the day, all in all for this one, it was a fine Direct. It was fine. I don't really have any problems with it. I feel like the sizzle reel, honestly, was kind of what saved the conference more than anything, just because I was like, oh yeah, all this stuff is still coming. Here's a reminder, and there's a lot of it, too, that they didn't really need to talk about. Obviously, there was a couple games I was wondering why they didn't discuss them, one of them being that Yoshi game that they've been talking about for a while from Goodfeel. I mean, I wasn't out here going, like, where's Animal Crossing, you know, or all these other games that people had built up expectations for that there was no indication they were going to be there in the first place. But all in all, you know, the fact that most of this conference was focused on a good port job, but a port job nonetheless, and, you know, more of the same from a lot of games that I'm kind of sick of them honestly showing, and then Super Mario Party, I'm going to have to give Nintendo a 6 out of 10. I'm going to have to give them a 6 out of 10. I do think that Nintendo was good. I think they were better than Sony. They at least, you know, came with release dates and things like that, and they did, you know, remind us that they do have a strong and fortified library, but at the end of the day, there really wasn't a whole lot to write home about this conference. And yes, I am going to say even in regards to Super Smash Brothers, there's, you know, get caught up in the hype all you want, but when you take a step back and you look at it, you go, it's Smash Brothers Wii U with not a whole lot more to say about it. So yeah, that's going to be it for this impressions video. I do have one more E3 related video I want to make. I don't know exactly how soon I'm going to get to it, but that video is going to be more of a kind of an overarching thoughts on E3 as a whole. Just, you know, what I thought were the best and worst moments of E3, and also what I think are the pros and cons we got out of each conference in general, and kind of what this E3 means for the game industry moving forward. So with that, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.